You didn't make this up. That soft steadiness that washes over you when their name drifts across your mind. That early morning whisper that doesn't shout, doesn't argue, only settles you. That quiet surge in your chest that feels like a compass pointing home. This is not fantasy. This is revelation. You asked heaven for a sign you could trust, something stronger than your overthinking and kinder than your fear, and God answered you with the one signature he loves to use when he wants you to remember: peace. Not the kind that hides from reality, but the kind that makes you more honest, more present, more yourself. If you've been saying, "Lord, is this really you? Did this person come from you?" Hear this with your whole heart. Yes, I have already spoken. Now trust what I have shown you. Let's name the ache that brought you here. You are tired of doubting what your spirit knows. You are weary of watching other people move on while you wrestle with a promise that refuses to leave. You have tried to reason yourself out of hope, tried to lower your expectations so disappointment would hurt less, tried to call your discernment wishful thinking, but hope keeps quietly standing back up. Why? Because when God plants someone in your heart, he does not plant a panic. He plants a purpose. He places a person before the moment so that your character can grow around the promise. And here is the part your mind struggles to believe. When God plants someone in your heart, he also plants you in theirs. This is not a one-way street. Somewhere, on another pillow, under another sky, someone is waking up with your name in their prayers, and they don't fully understand why. Their spirit recognizes yours even at a distance. The delay doesn't mean denial. It means preparation. Then why the silence? Why the wait? Because God isn't building a romance that collapses at the first storm. He's building a covenant that can carry purpose. Shallow love is born of emptiness, needs proof every hour, and dissolves at the first sign of friction. The love God authors is born of abundance, two whole hearts, not two desperate halves, choosing to share what they already have. He heals your old wounds so you don't bleed on new blessings. He strengthens their courage so they don't run from what answers their own prayer. He rearranges circumstances you cannot see so that the meeting is not an accident you must chase, but a door you can walk through standing tall. If you feel behind because of birthdays or timelines, take this as kindness. Heaven does not fear your age. Heaven uses it. Where you see years gone, God sees wisdom gained. Where you see delays, he sees foundations being poured so joy will have a floor strong enough to dance on. Maybe you're asking, what if I'm deceiving myself? What if this is just longing in a costume? Test it. When you think of this person, are you pulled into agitation or invited into prayer? Do you find yourself plotting strategies to get attention or blessing their life whether or not you are seen? Does the thought of us make you less faithful where you stand or more excellent in the lane you've been given today? God's confirmations never require manipulation. They do not recruit you into chasing, bargaining, or begging. They recruit you into becoming, into forgiveness that closes old chapters, into habits that make you sturdy, into boundaries that keep your heart clean and your hope holy. Confirmation is not a license to control. It is an invitation to prepare. So here is what we will do together in this journey. We will pull your confirmation out of the fog and set it on firm ground. We will show you why peace, not adrenaline, is heaven's handwriting. We will distinguish revelation from fantasy without bruising your faith. We will honor God's timing without slipping into passivity. We will turn waiting into formation, forgiving what still stings, rebuilding what still wobbles, learning the daily practices that make room for a promise to live and breathe. We will also show you how God confirms on both sides, how he works in parallel in two lives, softening what pride hardened, healing what fear guarded, aligning steps neither of you could force. And when the hour draws near, you'll learn to recognize the shift, doors opening without you knocking them down, humility replacing performance, outside voices quietly noticing what you've kept sacred. Before we move on, try this simple posture that will meet you on hard days and happy ones alike. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe in slowly. Say it out loud, even if your voice trembles. God has already shown me what I need to know. I trust his word more than my worry. Feel how your shoulders lower. That is not avoidance. That is alignment. Peace is not the absence of questions. It is the presence of God in the middle of them. Let that peace do its work. Let it turn doubt into focus, hurry into holiness, grasping into gratitude. Let it free you to live fully now, because what is from God does not require you to abandon your life to keep it alive. When it happens, it won't look like a movie scene that burns hot and burns out. It will feel like home, calm, clear, committed. Not perfect because you're human, purposeful because you're called. And when you look across that table and realize every tear, every lesson, every long night led to this moment, you will know why the confirmation would not leave you alone. God wasn't teasing you. He was teaching you to carry what you asked him for. Until then, hold this truth like a lantern. What belongs to you by assignment cannot be stolen by time, noise, or fear. It will arrive right on time, and when it does, you'll be ready, not because you chased it, but because you were faithful while you waited. Now, let's begin turning confirmation into a path you can walk with confidence. If you want to know whether something is born in heaven or manufactured by fear, listen to the atmosphere it carries. Counterfeits travel with noise, racing thoughts, clenched shoulders, strategies that keep you awake, rehearsing what to say and how to be seen. God's confirmations arrive with a different climate. They do not demand that you sprint. They invite you to stand. They do not inflate you with adrenaline. They settle you with assurance. That is why their name returns to you like a soft tide instead of a storm. It is why, when you whisper a simple prayer for their well-being, your chest loosens as if a tight room just opened a window. Peace is not the absence of emotion. Peace is the presence of God ruling over your emotions. And when God is confirming a person, he writes his peace across your heart again and again until even your doubts grow quiet to read it. This is important because many of us have confused intensity with truth. We have lived through seasons where longing wore a crown and called itself destiny, where loneliness banged on the door, and we mistook the volume for the voice of God. Intensity can mimic urgency, but it cannot manufacture fruit. Peace, however, carries fruit in its pockets. Peace makes you more patient with yourself and kinder to others. Peace does not push you to perform for attention. It invites you to pray without an invoice. Peace does not shrink your calling to fit a storyline. It deepens your discipline where you are so that your life begins to match what your heart believes. If thinking of them makes you excellent in the lane God has already assigned, more faithful at work, more present with family, more careful with your words, pay attention. Heaven's handwriting is on that. Notice how this peace behaves when you test it. You do not have to baby it. You can ask hard questions in the presence of God and watch your frantic what-ifs fade into one steady even if. Even if the timetable stretches, the peace remains. Even if others move ahead, the peace remains. Even if you release your grip on outcomes, the peace remains. That durability is a hint of origin. Counterfeits wilt when you stop feeding them with obsession. Divine confirmation keeps breathing when you put it on the altar. In fact, it breathes better there. Because the altar is where God keeps what you cannot carry and grows what you cannot grow. The day you stop worshipping a timeline and start worshipping the author, you will feel the difference from your bones outward. There is another way peace tells on itself. It changes your posture from possession to intercession. Fantasy imagines scenes where you are finally chosen. Revelation bends your knees so you can bless them whether or not you are seen. You find yourself praying strangely mature prayers. Protect their mind from lies. Give them friends who tell them the truth. Strengthen what is noble in them. Heal what still bleeds unseen. And when you say amen, you are less anxious, not more attached. That is because love, when God authors it, is never a sentence that imprisons another person in your preference. It is a sanctuary where God's will is welcomed even when it asks you to wait. Intercession is not a way to control outcomes. It is how you refuse to worship them. Now, someone will ask, what if I am simply craving companionship and calling it confirmation? That is a wise question, and the answer is found in the direction of your energy. Craving pulls you out of your life. Confirmation roots you deeper in it. Craving makes your present feel like a punishment. Confirmation makes your today feel purposeful because you sense that formation is holy. Craving invents tactics to get attention. Confirmation curates habits, rest, prayer, stewardship, integrity, so that if the door opens, you walk through as a whole person rather than a rehearsed performance. Ask yourself plainly, do my thoughts about them make me neglect who I am becoming, or do they refine who I am becoming? God never confirms a person in a way that asks you to betray yourself or your assignment. You will also see peace govern your boundaries. When you are operating out of fear, every boundary feels like a risk. If I say no, will I miss my chance? Under divine peace, boundaries feel like reverence. If I say yes to everything, I will disrespect the oil God is building in me. You will release the desire to audition. You will reject the pressure to prove. You will choose discretion over spectacle because you understand that sacred things shrink under fluorescent lights. Not every friend needs a briefing. Not every post needs a hint. Peace gives you the freedom to hide a seed in the soil until God says, now. And the remarkable thing is that your heart stops pacing the hallway for updates. You find yourself living, really living, finishing the work on your desk, laughing with people you love, worshipping without using worship as a bargaining chip. Peace untangles you from performance so you can breathe. Do not misunderstand. Peace does not erase longing. It teaches longing how to behave. You may still wake some nights with a sigh for what has not yet arrived, but the sigh will end in prayer, not panic. You may feel the tug of impatience, but it will not recruit your hands into manufacturing what only God can deliver. Think of peace as the gravity of heaven. It holds you to the ground God has given while He aligns what is beyond your reach. When the moment to move comes, you will move without losing yourself. When the moment to be still remains, you will be still without shaming yourself. This is what it means to be led by the Spirit in matters of the heart. Your steps are guided by the same presence that quieted your questions. Here is a simple practice to anchor this truth. When their name appears in your thoughts, pause. Place your hand on your heart, breathe slowly and ask, what is the smallest faithful act this peace is inviting me to take right now? It may be 5 honest minutes in Scripture. It may be finishing a task with excellence. It may be one sincere prayer for their courage or a deliberate refusal to check their page. Then do that one thing without fanfare. Consistency is how confirmation becomes character. Character is how character becomes capacity. Capacity is how love lasts. Before we go on, receive this reassurance. If peace is anchoring you, you are not late and you are not lost. You are being led. What is yours by assignment will not require you to injure your soul to keep it. Let peace remain your north, not your excuse. Let it spur you into steady growth rather than sleepy passivity. Let it clean the lenses through which you look at your future, so that when God begins to move in visible ways, you can recognize Him without needing to control Him. If this word is settling your heart and helping you recognize God's signature in your own story, subscribe now. Stay close to these teachings so your peace can keep its shape while God aligns what you cannot see. One quiet yes today can protect you from 1,000 loud detours tomorrow. One of the kindest truths God is teaching you in this season is that confirmation is not a mirror you hold up to your own face. It is a window into a story He is writing in 2 lives at once. You are not the only one who feels a tug that logic cannot domesticate. You are not the only one waking with a name in your mouth. When God places someone in your heart, He's not playing a lonely game of hints. He's also tending to their side of the field, sowing recognition in places you cannot reach and softening ground you cannot touch. This is the paradox that eases your fear. Even when you hear nothing, God is not silent. He is multilingual, speaking to you in peace and to them in ways suited to their wiring, a dream that lingers into daylight, a sudden clarity in prayer, a holy unrest with substitutes that used to suffice. Think about how God has led you. Not with panic, but with presence. Not with ultimatums, but with invitations. He will do the same for them. On their timeline, this may look like a series of small disruptions that add up to a turning, old appetites losing flavor, conversations that leave them hungry for truth, a thought of you arriving unprovoked and refusing to leave. At first, they may swat it away, naming it nostalgia or distraction. Yet the nudge returns, quieter and stronger, refusing to perform for their approval and still refusing to go. This is how God honors dignity while He shepherds destiny. He does not bulldoze the will, He woos it. He uses peace to make running from peace feel absurd. But if God is confirming on both sides, why do you sometimes face distance or delay? Because confirmation is not coercion. You and they both carry histories, fears you learn to trust, defenses that once protected you, beliefs about love that grew from pain. God will not bypass those landscapes. He will heal them. For you, that healing has meant learning to trade control for trust, fantasy for intercession, performance for preparation. For them, healing may look like courage to be seen without a mask, humility to apologize for what they once justified, strength to step towards something real instead of clinging to what is convenient. You cannot accelerate that process with pressure without also damaging the very soil where love should root. The right response to their pace is not panic, it is prayer. Not, Lord, make them choose me, but Lord, make them free, free enough to choose you, and then whatever you bless. There is a pattern many miss because it does not trend on timelines. Simultaneity. You forgive a wound from years ago, and the same week they reach out to reconcile with a family member. You release your grip on outcomes, and they suddenly become honest in an area where they once hid. You establish a new boundary and watch their discernment sharpen in friendships that once diluted them. These are not coincidences. They are evidences that God is moving in parallel, shaping two souls to fit without shaving off the parts he loves. When you see these parallels, receive them as comfort, not as a cue to grab the wheel. Confirmation is a chorus. Do not try to conduct it. Let God keep time. Distance often disguises formation. You may be tempted to label silence as rejection, but heaven calls it processing. Behind closed doors, God is adjusting lenses, teaching them to see you without the distortions of past heartbreak, teaching you to see them without projecting your unmet needs. He is also rearranging practical realities, work rhythms, geography, obligations that would strangle a fledgling covenant if left unaddressed. You cannot see calendar grids from here, but you can trust the one who does. Remember, when God writes together, he also writes timely. A rushed yes becomes a future repair bill. A patient yes becomes a foundation. How do you live well in a story God is writing on both sides? First, bless without agenda. Pray the kind of prayer that leaves your hands open. Father, grow what is noble in them. Heal what hurts. Surround them with wise voices. Make your will unmistakable. If praying that way increases your peace, you've found the current of God's heart. Second, practice sacred discretion. Resist the urge to gather witnesses for your hope. Not because you are ashamed of it, but because sacred things deserve shade while they root. Third, keep your life bright. The confirmation is not a reason to dim your vocation, friendships, or stewardship. Let your present be so faithful that when the door opens, you bring a whole life to the table, not an empty chair craving to be filled. You may ask, but how will I know it's mutual when the time comes? Mutuality has a sound. It is the sound of humility showing up where charm used to play alone. It is the sound of consistency replacing sporadic intensity. It is the quiet rhythm of repaired trust. No grandstanding, no mystery games, just honest steps that match honest words. Mutuality also has a fruit. Both of you become more yourselves in God, not less. Purpose gets clearer, not compromised. Peace expands, not erodes. Boundaries are honored, not negotiated away to keep momentum. And if questions arise, as they will, you handle them like people who want truth more than victory. Here is a gentle guardrail. Do not try to be the Holy Spirit in their life. You are not their conviction. You are their intercessor. You are not their timetable. You are their witness when God moves. Release the urge to send helpful reminders dressed as hints. Release the scripts you wrote for conversations that have not happened. Release the fear that if you do not push, the promise will expire. What is from God does not need you to impersonate God. Your job is smaller and holier. Keep your heart clean, your hope honest, your hands busy with the assignment in front of you. Finally, remember the mercy inside the mystery. You are not waiting alone. God is with you, and God is also with them. He is not biased for one and against the other. He is for both of you becoming the kind of people whose love will serve, not just soothe. Let that steady you. Let it free you from grasping. Let it turn your eyes from their silence to God's faithfulness, from the clock to the caller. Two hearts, one author. If he started this conversation, he knows how to bring both voices to the table at the right time, with the right words, for the right work, together. If you have ever stood at a window watching rain clouds gather and wondered why the sky keeps waiting though the fields are thirsty, you already understand something about God's timing. Heaven does not release what it cannot sustain. It is not stinginess that slows the storm. It is wisdom that waits for the air, the pressure, the wind to align, so the rain will bless and not break what stands beneath it. Your story is like that. The waiting you resent is the weather system God is arranging so love arrives as provision, not as a flood that ruins the ground it was sent to heal. This is why divine timing never bends to panic. Panic builds from emptiness, rushing to be filled. God builds from abundance, shaping two whole lives that can host a promise without swallowing it, serve a mission without losing themselves, choose each other without abandoning the call that made them who they are. Look closely at the architecture of your waiting, and you will see a careful mercy at work. God has been interrogating the beliefs you carry about yourself and about love. Beliefs formed in rooms where fear spoke louder than truth. Perhaps you learned that attention equals affection, so you overperformed to be kept. Perhaps rejection taught you to read silence as contempt and distance as danger. Perhaps comparison trained your eyes to count birthdays like deadlines, to scroll other people's highlight reels and accuse God of favoritism. In the delay, God has been crossing out those scripts with patience, not shame. He has been teaching your nervous system the grammar of peace so you can stay in your body when intimacy gets real. Teaching your mind to recognize the tone of His Spirit so you can say no to counterfeits with a clean heart. Teaching your will to choose boundaries that protect your oil instead of sabotaging it with the fear of losing someone. And what about them? The silence that tempts you to despair may be the silence of surgery. God does not publish another person's process to ease your anxiety. He does better. He works. He confronts pride that was once called confidence. He heals private griefs that never found language. He punctures illusions that kept them loyal to rooms where love was earned by shrinking. He invites them out of agreements that chained their future to outdated versions of themselves. All this is preparation, not punishment. So when you say, "But Lord, if this is you, why not now?" hear the answer that protects you from 1,000 preventable heartbreaks. Because right now I'm making both of you ready to keep what you asked me to give. A promise given to an unprepared soul becomes pressure. A promise given to a prepared soul becomes peace. You may still fear you have missed your window because of age or history. Count that fear as a guest who does not know your host. Age is not a cliff in the kingdom. It is a tool. Years have been adding strength to your yes, clarity to your no, discernment to your choices, resonance to your voice. Wisdom is not a consolation prize. It is scaffolding for joy. Where your culture preaches urgency as proof of value, heaven preaches stability as proof of love. Sudden sparks impress crowds. Sustained flame warms homes. The family and future you are praying for need more than chemistry. They need character that does not evaporate when weather changes. God is building that in you now. Patience that is not passivity. Kindness that does not enable. Humility that does not perform. Courage that does not humiliate. Consider the difference between need-based and purpose-based love. Need-based love says, "I cannot breathe unless you pick me." It is romantic, dramatic, and ultimately brittle because it requires the other person to be your oxygen. Purpose-based love says, "I breathe with God, and with that breath I choose you." It is quieter, deeper, and sustainable because it is fueled by a source no human has to supply. Need-based love bargains with boundaries, sells its convictions for contact, and calls chaos passion. Purpose-based love treasures boundaries as reverence, refuses to trade calling for chemistry, and calls peace home. The delay is where God has been transitioning you from one to the other, teaching you to live full so that when you love, you add, not attach. You bless, not beg. You serve, not swallow. This preparation is not theoretical. It shows up in your calendar and your conversations. It is the discipline to finish what you start so your future does not inherit your unfinished work. It is the decision to forgive the past so your present does not bleed into your next. It is the choice to invest in friendships that sharpen you instead of entertainment that numbs you. It is financial stewardship that respects tomorrow, health rhythms that honor your body, spiritual practices that anchor your soul. Because covenant does not only join two hearts, it joins two lives. If your daily life cannot host your present with care, it will not magically host your future with wisdom. God's kindness is in the details. He is sanding rough edges now so they do not cut both of you later. He is widening your capacity now so joy has room to live when it arrives. But what if I wait and nothing happens? That sentence is the last fortress of control. Translate it into truth. What if I trust God and He fails me? He will not, He cannot. The cross and the empty tomb are your receipts. What may happen is different than you pictured, but different is not lesser when God authors it. The promise of preparation is not that every preference will be met. It is that every purpose will be honored, and even the preferences you keep will feel redeemed. Less about impressing an audience, more about building a life that breathes. In that life, affection is not a performance review. Commitment is not a power play. Conflict is not a courtroom. You become two grown people who can sit at a table and tell the truth without turning it into a weapon. Learn to recognize healthy slowness. Unholy delay keeps moving goalposts to avoid responsibility. Holy delay installs foundations to carry responsibility. Unholy delay says, prove yourself again. Holy delay says, grow yourself deeper. One trains you to chase crumbs, the other trains you to bake bread. If your waiting is making you smaller, that is not from God. Address it. If your waiting is making you steadier, clearer, kinder, braver, more faithful where you stand, keep going. You're not losing time. You are investing it. When the door opens, you will not be scrambling to be worthy. You will be walking in as the person this promise already assumed you would become. Let this sentence become a shelter you can carry. Delay is not God punishing desire. It is God protecting destiny. Say it when envy tries to recruit you. Say it when silence feels like a verdict. Say it when a counterfeit flashes neon promises you could grab today at the price of tomorrow. And then act like it's true. Show up for your calling. Tell the truth quickly. Keep your boundaries kind and firm. Honor your body. Pay your bills on time. Pray with a clean heart. Bless them without agenda. Laugh often. Worship without bargaining. Do the next faithful thing. That, right there, is the sound of preparation turning into readiness, and readiness is what turns a confirmed promise into a covenant that lasts. Confirmation is the spark. Formation is the hearth that keeps it burning. Many people receive a holy hint and then try to live from that single moment as if one sunrise could heat an entire winter. God's way is kinder and wiser. He gives a sign, yes, and then invites you into a way of living that can shelter the promise when weather comes. That is why the peace you carry keeps pointing you back to the ordinary rhythms of your day. If the future you long for cannot find a steady home inside your present routines, it will grow cold quickly. The question is not, how do I make this happen? But who am I becoming while God makes it happen? When you ask it this way, control loosens its grip and character quietly takes the wheel. You stop scanning the horizon for proof and begin building a life that is proof of maturity, of wholeness, of readiness. Begin where love often stumbles, unhealed pain. Old chapters rarely stay politely in the past. They migrate into your next conversation, your next suspicion, your next overreaction. Confession is not a performance for God. It is permission for Him to touch what you cannot fix. Speak plainly with Him about the places that still ache, about the red flags you missed, the names you've called yourself, the sentences you've held against others. When honesty enters the room, shame leaves by the nearest door. Forgiveness soon follows, not because the past becomes harmless, but because your future deserves to travel light. Forgiveness does not excuse patterns. It releases penalties. It returns the gavel to God so your hands are free to build. You will know forgiveness is landing when you can tell the truth without rehearsing a case, and when you can bless another's healing without attaching a deadline to their apology. Then invite God to dismantle control, where it hides under the costume of care. Control has many disguises: the endless check-ins, the strategic posts, the little tests to measure interest, the imaginary conversations you rehearse at red lights. None of these bring peace. All of them drain power. Surrender, by contrast, looks like stewardship. It does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things for the right reasons. You steward your mind by feeding it with what steadies you rather than what spikes you. Scripture before scrolling, prayer before peaking, depth before distraction. You steward your body with real rest and intentional movement, so your nervous system remembers that it is safe now, because people who sleep and breathe are difficult to manipulate. You steward your resources so covenant does not inherit debts of neglect. You steward your calling so your days have substance beyond waiting, because purpose is attractive precisely because it is honest. Let boundaries become the architecture of reverence. When fear rules, boundaries feel like locked doors that keep love away. When peace tutors you, boundaries turn into windows that let light in without letting everything in. You do not answer every message at midnight. You do not explain your discernment to those who have not earned access to your interior. You do not flirt with counterfeits to prove you still have it. Sacred things stay small while they grow. Discretion is not secrecy, it is stewardship. A seed is not ashamed of soil. It simply knows it cannot survive under a spotlight. Whenever you feel the urge to broadcast your hope, pause and ask what you are really seeking, validation or partnership with God. Validation never has enough. Partnership is already present. Trade investigation for intercession. Curiosity will tempt you to collect updates your heart is not built to carry. Searches and scrolls that simulate closeness without any covenant capable of holding the weight. Intercession does the opposite. It substitutes data with dignity and keeps your eyes on God while your heart stays soft for them. Pray in a way that transforms you while it blesses them. Ask heaven to close every door that flatters but starves the soul, to make truth feel like clean air, to teach you to love in ways that increase another's freedom rather than your leverage. Then release the matter. Trust is not the absence of an itch to check. Trust is the decision not to scratch it into a wound. Establish a rule of life simple enough to carry on your heaviest days. When their name rises, put your hand on your heart, breathe slowly, and speak the sentence you chose in calm. I do not need to force what God is forming. Then return to the next faithful act that belongs to today. Finish the draft. Cook the meal. Give someone your undivided attention. Step into evening light and thank God for everything your eyes can see. Gratitude is not denial. It is calibration. It converts a blurry future into a crisp present, and only the present can host obedience. Repeat this often enough, and your body will learn a new normal, stillness that moves you forward. Do not try to carry this alone. Community is not decorative. It is load-bearing. Isolation makes fantasies louder and discernment weaker. Sit with people who tell you the truth and celebrate your growth without turning your story into entertainment. Seek a mentor with kind eyes and firm boundaries. Submit your impressions to someone who loves Scripture more than your butterflies. If your confirmations evaporate under counsel, be grateful for the rescue. If they strengthen, be grateful for the witness. Also, serve somewhere your gift actually helps another human being breathe. Love gets strong by lifting, not by lifting mirrors. Mind your digital soul, because your nervous system is not a warehouse for constant pings. Give yourself windows for communication and windows for silence. Unfollow streams that inflame envy or awaken old comparisons. Disable metrics that convert kindness into scorekeeping. Keep rooms where your phone cannot follow. Your dinner table, your bed, your prayer chair. Learn to go off-grid to meet with God and return more human. If this cost you a rumor or two, count it a bargain. Your soul is not a news service. Let your week carry a holy cadence so formation is not left to mood. Choose a day where you practice unhurry with God instead of strategy about them. Read whole books of Scripture aloud so your tongue learns the grammar of praise and your judgment learns the rhythm of wisdom. Each evening, notice where you sensed peace and where you grasped. Confess the grasping and thank Him for the peace. Offer yourself in some small act that costs comfort but pays someone else's bill of despair. Honor your body with movement and sleep as non-negotiables, not rewards. Keep your honesty limber with questions that pull you toward growth. Ask what you are trying to control that belongs to God. Ask which boundary protected your peace this week and which one you bargained away. Ask what habit you would regret carrying through the door if it opened tomorrow. Ask what evidences of growth you can name without apology. If envy rises while you answer, bring it into the light. It loses power there. Pay attention to the state of your own heart rather than policing theirs. You are in a good place when hope makes you diligent. When you can tell a trusted friend there is no update without spiraling. When you can bless their growth in prayer and release the method God will use. You are drifting when you rehearse speeches at night, when you monitor their life like a stock ticker, when you rename compromise as faith and obsession as discernment. When drift appears, do not cancel your progress. Practice your practices. Step outside if possible. Place your palm on something solid, a wall, a tree, a table, and speak 3 present truths aloud. God is with me. My peace is intact. I am becoming. The enemy traffics in hypotheticals. God meets you in specifics. You are not a floating brain waiting for a ping. You are a whole person living a whole day that God will use even if the phone stays quiet. Welcome wise help when you need it. A seasoned counselor or spiritual director can help your body learn that love is not a threat, and your soul learn that boundaries are not punishments. Therapy is not extra credit for fragile people. It is strategic courage for future-ready people. Some knots do not yield to sheer will. They loosen under patient questions and practiced hands. Healing here is not optional polish. It is essential capacity for covenant. Name the kind of love you are preparing to build. Write a vision that describes the rhythms, the boundaries, and the mission you hope to embody together. Then craft a private promise to your future spouse that you may never send. You will tell the truth early. You will not use affection as leverage. You will not ask another human to be your oxygen. You will breathe with God and bring your breath. These words will not conjure a person. They will calibrate one, yourself. Shortcuts will present themselves as kindness. Attention will flatter your loneliness while starving your future. Compromises will wear the costume of compassion. Thrills will pretend to be confirmation because they rhyme with your ache. In those moments, ask the question your future self will thank you for. If I say yes to this, what will it demand from the person I am becoming? Peace will answer quickly. It will warn when a door opens into a room with no oxygen. It will nudge when a small no today protects a great yes tomorrow. Trust it. Peace has been faithful to you. Be faithful to peace. There comes a quiet threshold in every God-authored story when what he has been forming beneath the surface begins to breathe above it. You do not schedule this moment, and you do not summon it with cleverness. You sense it the way sailors sense. A shift in the wind, something invisible presses differently on your skin, and the sails of your soul fill without your striving. The very peace that has kept you steady in the hidden place begins to translate into movement you can finally see. Conversations that once required choreography now happen without rehearsal. Paths that felt parallel begin leaning toward a meeting point you did not manufacture. You notice your heart doing a strange thing. It grows quieter, even as life grows louder. This is not the adrenaline of a chase. It is the dignity of alignment. It is the difference between forcing a lock with a hairpin and hearing the right key turn because it has finally arrived home. Holy momentum does not need spectacle to prove it is real. It leaves a gentler evidence in its wake. Where you once clung to outcomes, you find yourself loosening your grip to pick up responsibility, because movement from God always asks you to become more faithful, not more frantic. You stop looking for signs like a beggar and start behaving like a steward, showing up on time to your own life while God brings timing to what involves more than you. Even your language changes. Instead of bargaining prayers that attempt to corner God into your calendar, you speak the truth with a grateful calm. You have done something in me that no silence could undo, and now I am watching you do what I could never engineer. In that posture, you do not hover over the promise to protect it from oxygen. You let it breathe. You allow conversation to be conversation instead of courtroom. You allow presence to be present instead of performance. You allow the other person to emerge as who God is shaping, not as who your fear rehearsed. When the shift arrives, humility becomes easy because the narrative is unmistakably larger than your effort. You will remember the long months when you blessed them in prayer with no guarantee of reciprocation, and now you are sitting across from one another naming the same reality with the same peace. You will remember the nights when old wounds tried to recruit you back into control, and now you are watching your healed boundaries make room for trust to grow at a human pace. You will remember how loneliness once threatened to turn you into an actor, and now you're grateful you waited until you could tell the truth without turning it into leverage. This gratitude is not sentimental. It is sturdy. It will keep you grounded when the first real tests come, because they will. Real love is not the absence of friction. It is the presence of repair. What God has forged in your character during the waiting becomes the toolkit you quietly reach for when misunderstandings appear, when schedules clash, when old reflexes knock on the door asking to be let back in. You answer them with the steadiness you learned in the wilderness. I do not need to force what God is forming, and I will not sabotage what God is sustaining. Do not be surprised if, in the first waves of momentum, your flesh tries to speed ahead of your spirit. Nostalgia for adrenaline will whisper that faster means fuller, that constant contact equals commitment, that public declarations will cement what is still becoming. Smile at those impulses and let them pass. Then remember the point of all this. God did not confirm a person to deliver you from patience. He confirmed a person to deepen your trust while he builds a covenant with weight. Move at the speed of honesty, not hunger. Let pace be chosen by clarity rather than by fear of losing what you did not gain by fear in the first place. The fruit you tasted in the secret place, peace that makes you kinder, boundaries that protect. Your oil, prayer that keeps you free, must remain the fruit you carry into the visible place. Otherwise, momentum will hollow you out where it should have filled you. There will also be voices around you eager to narrate your story for you. Some will be well-meaning and loud, urging announcements and milestones as if love needs an audience to be true. Others will project their disappointments or hurry onto your pace, measuring your maturity by how closely your path resembles theirs. Hold the reins of your discretion with gentle strength. You are not hiding something you are ashamed of. You are honoring something you treasure. Sacred things do not suffocate under privacy. They mature. Let counsel be wise and few. Invite the eyes that have proven they love God's will more than your spotlight. Receive affirmation without outsourcing discernment, when you and the other person can bless the same boundaries without resentment. You are watching evidence of mutual surrender to the same shepherd, and that is rarer than chemistry, more necessary than charm. You may notice how God keeps folding mission into affection until the two are difficult to separate. This is by design. The confirmation he gave you was never an invitation to orbit around each other as if you were suns. It was an invitation to orbit him together so his light could use your love as a lens. You will see it in small ways first. The way serving side by side makes conversation honest without effort. The way praying for others together makes your own desires feel more generous. The way laughter returns as a form of worship after years when laughter was a mask. Then you will see it in ways that shape your calendars and your choices, saying yes to assignments that stretch both of you, saying no to rooms that require you to diminish the very growth God produced. This is not austerity, it is alignment. Joy lives here, not as a prize you chase, but as a byproduct of two lives that fit because truth holds them. There can be a temptation when momentum begins to seek omens to confirm every next step, as if love were a maze that requires a fresh sign at every turn. Freedom waits on the other side of that superstition. You have already received the kind of confirmation that counts, the peace that endured waiting, the parallel growth you could not choreograph, the character forged in hiddenness, the humility that now comes naturally. Live from those anchors rather than hunting for novelties. God is not fickle in his affirmations. He is faithful in his presence. If anxiety spikes, return to the practices that kept you sane before anything moved. If joy swells, let it teach you gratitude rather than entitlement. If conflict arises, let your first reflex be prayerful curiosity instead of prosecution. Momentum will not rescue you from the need to choose kindness. It will require it more often, because now there is something tender to protect. Here is how you will know you are walking well in this chapter. You look at the person in front of you and recognize that your desire for them has been braided with a deeper desire for God's will in both of your lives. You hear yourself saying sentences that once felt impossible to say with calm, statements that honor your needs without weaponizing them, apologies that come without theater, requests for clarity that do not carry an accusation. You feel the width of your interior expand, as if God knocked down a few walls to make room for laughter and truth to move freely. You notice that your private worship is richer, not because you are getting what you want, but because you are discovering that what God wants for you is better than what you would have settled for. That discovery becomes the quiet courage under every yes you give and every no you keep. If the first chapters of this journey taught you to rest while nothing moved, this chapter will teach you to rest while everything moves. It is the same rest, just exercised in a new environment. You will sit in living rooms and cafes and sanctuaries and parked cars and sense that the same God who met you weeping on your bedroom floor is here now, knitting threads you could not tie with 10,000 hands. You will find yourself whispering thank you in the most ordinary places, over a shared joke that disarms old fears, over a prayer that drops the temperature in a tense moment, over a simple text that carries no performance at all. That gratitude is a guard. Keep it close. It keeps grandeur from stealing the glory that belongs to God alone. It keeps you from bowing to the relationship as an idol while you cherish it as a gift. It keeps you awake to the miracle that this entire story has always been. Not that you finally achieved what you desired, but that you were transformed enough to receive it without losing the one who gave it. So walk softly and steadily. Let your steps be light with humility and firm with conviction. You did not arrive here by luck, and you will not stay here by labor. You arrived because God is faithful, and you will remain because you continue to choose his way, slow enough to hear, brave enough to act, honest enough to repair, surrendered enough to be led. When momentum is holy, it will never scream, hurry. It will quietly say, continue, and you will, with peace as your compass and God as your author, into the chapter that waits. If you trace the arc of this whole journey with unhurried eyes, you will notice how gently God has carried you from ache to assurance, from confirmation to character, from hidden preparation to a quiet, steady momentum that does not need to shout to be real. At the beginning, you were asking if the whisper in your spirit was wishful thinking. Now you can name it as peace that survived both silence and time. At the beginning, you measured love by proximity and proof. Now you recognize love by the fruit it grows in you. Patience without passivity, boundaries without bitterness, tenderness without bargaining. None of this is an accident. God has not merely been arranging a meeting with a person. He has been arranging a meeting with your purpose, and he did it by making you someone who can carry joy without dropping God. So here you are, standing where prayer and preparation meet. You no longer have to sprint after omens or negotiate with anxiety for permission to breathe. You know how to bless them in intercession instead of studying them for evidence. You know how to guard the sacred without hiding in fear, how to speak the truth without weaponizing your need, how to let peace set the pace when pressure tries to drive. Most of all, you know where your oxygen comes from. You have learned to breathe with God first. So what you bring to this promise is not a hunger that consumes, but a fullness that shares. That is what it means to receive rather than grasp, to host rather than hoard, to love as worship rather than as rescue. Do not rewrite the story now that the chapter is turning. Continue the quiet practices that taught your soul to be still. Keep your mornings honest before God. Keep your friendships deep and ordinary. Keep your assignments alive so your days possess more than anticipation. When the door opens wider, and it will, enter with the same humility that kept you safe in the hallway. Let this relationship grow in rooms that breathe, rooms where laughter is not a mask, where conflict becomes repair, where mission is not a slogan, but a shared way of spending your lives on what matters. Remember that the sign God gave you was never meant to replace His voice. It was meant to tune you to it. Keep listening, keep obeying, keep letting the peace that confirmed this promise govern the way you walk it out. If doubt tries to borrow your tongue, answer it with the sentence that has carried you. I do not need to force what God is forming. If fear tries to bargain with your boundaries, answer it with the history you now carry. God has already been faithful to me in the waiting. He will be faithful to me in the becoming. If impatience tries to rename urgency as wisdom, answer it with the quiet evidence of your own growth. The fruit of the Spirit is still the compass. Anything that demands I outrun peace is not the Spirit. In this way, you will protect what heaven is entrusting to you, not with suspicion, but with honor. Not with secrecy, but with stewardship. Not with control, but with a surrendered strength that refuses to trade tomorrow's covenant for today's applause. Lift your eyes for a moment and consider the kindness of God. He did not mock your longing. He mentored it. He did not punish your desire. He purified it. He did not rush past your wounds. He rewrote them into wisdom, then handed you back your heart, lighter, truer, readier, so that when you give it, you will give it as an offering, not as a plea. This is why the ending of one season is not the end at all. It is a consecrated beginning. You are not closing a fairy tale with a final kiss. You are opening a covenant with a final yes, the kind that echoes because it is anchored in 1,000 smaller yeses you have already practiced in the secret place. So walk forward, softly, steadily, gratefully. Bless what God is building even as you build it with Him. Refuse to idolize the gift or to minimize it. Hold it where it belongs, beneath His lordship and within His light. And if you ever forget how to measure your steps, look back at the map He drew across these chapters. Confirmation that bred peace, preparation that birthed character, formation that made room for joy, momentum that arrived without manipulation. That is the pattern. Keep it, live it. Let it guard you when the room gets crowded and guide you when the room goes quiet. Now, with a calm that is anything but passive, say the words that align your heart to His timing and your hands to His work. Father, thank you for speaking, for shaping, for sustaining. I will not force what you are forming. I will honor what you have confirmed. I will love from fullness, not from fear. And I will keep in step with your Spirit, in the waiting, in the meeting, and in the life we will build under your name. Amen.